Welcome to the 14 Wins podcast, where we talk about high strangeness and the war for perception. I go by Bones, and with us, as always, is RamX.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Ram. Here we are, episode 49. The last episode, we laid out the idea that we're living through this war for perception. That power today isn't just about territory or technology, but about who gets to define reality itself. So today we're taking the next step. We're not rehashing that framework. We're going to apply it. Because once you accept that perception is the battlefield, a lot of recent events stop looking random. Certain religious movements make more sense. Certain disclosure narratives start to look strategic. And certain lines that were never supposed to be crossed suddenly have been. This is where we move from theory to pattern recognition.
Yes, and unfortunately, we're going to apply that framework to the Epstein files. Jeez, crow.
Yeah, it's dark.
These files are horrific. They're the stuff of nightmares. But I'm going to try to make this as triggerless as possible. Except I would recommend that anyone who is thinking that this is overblown, go read about 10 pages of those files.
Yeah.
Anyone who's listening to like Megyn Kelly or Nick Fuentes who are trying to trivialize or normalize this, please go read some of the files. They're clearly not familiar. For one thing, they're saying that his victims were all just barely legal teenagers. There are allegations of 8, and there are credible allegations of 12.
Right.
They're not even familiar with the evidence.
Right.
And it's a real problem because they're just trying to attenuate your perception somewhere.
Like you said, trivialize it.
Yeah, so maybe they should just shut their disgusting Peter mouths.
Right.
And there are some connections in there that I don't think anyone saw coming. Some truly explosive meetings, and he was very likely behind all or partially behind QAnon.
Right.
Did anyone see that coming? Like, I did not have that on my bingo card. Did anyone? I mean, I didn't even see that in the far fringiest corners of the internet.
Yeah, it's opening up a lot of eyes, and it makes a lot of sense.
It does, and we'll discuss some of the evidence for it today. And we'll also discuss some of the lowlights, as I'm calling them, because you can hardly call these things highlights, but perhaps some of the more explosive revelations and big names that have come to light so far. And I'm glad we're doing this episode like a week after these things dropped, because within 48 hours I had enough material to do 2 episodes, and it was hard to figure out what was going to be important, what hadn't been said. And I think we have a couple of things that just haven't been observed yet or talked about much. And it's similar to like the UFO field when something big happens and you can't figure out where to put your attention. So we're going to try to cut through some of the noise today and focus on those things we think are most impactful. And while we do that, we just don't ever want to forget that this is really about justice for those victims.
That's right.
So let's start with the most amusing and stupid and vapid evil within the files, which is, of course, Elon Musk.
Right. What a clown. He clowned himself.
This loser begged for an invite to Epstein Island, got blown off, and then tried to champion himself as the Epstein disclosure guy.
Right.
And no one is really contesting the reality of Epstein's emails. There are allegations in the file, and we need to make clear that those things are just allegations until they have evidence. Some of them do have some evidence associated with them, but they also haven't gone to trial. So we're just going to talk about what's in the files and what should have been investigated and what should have more information associated with it.
Yep.
And we're going to be moving really fast, so I trust all of you know how to use Reddit and YouTube and Google. These files are all available on justice.gov. People have already cloned them. His email is entirely cloned into a very cool Gmail web app that you can play around with. And you can just poke through his emails as if it was your own, which is a very disturbing thought. Sorry.
Yeah.
But but the information is all available. And so we're just going to keep this high level and plow through.
All right.
So anywho, Musk was sending emails to Epstein asking him when the best night to come to the island was of the wildest party. I think a lot of people have probably heard that already.
On Christmas morning.
That's the point, right? That's the reason I wanted to bring it up, because I felt like that detail was getting missed.
Man.
It was 6 a.m. Christmas morning. He's watching his kids opening their presents,
Right.
and he's like, I should email Jeffrey Epstein to see when a crazy Epstein party's happening.
Yeah, that's what's crossing his mind. 6 a.m. on Christmas.
He can say whatever he wants, in defense of that. But his daughter confirmed that they were in St. Bart's at the time that was mentioned in the email. So all the emails and the stuff in there was real. And then there was another email that Epstein had sent that doesn't get mentioned much, where Elon says, I'm bringing the girls to go meet Elon at SpaceX. So he brought girls to SpaceX to meet Elon too.
Yeah.
But it's important to mention Musk because Musk is a power node and he's involved in all of this and he's got sway within it. He's also making a play, and he also owns X/Twitter. So his involvement in that, even his purchase of it, is a part of all of this. And the other weird instance of a pattern that we see here is that Musk is simping to Epstein. He's constantly trying to flex in front of them, and he's also flattering him. And we see this all the time from powerful people. Like Peter Attia was a popular influencer guy, and he's recently been caught up with his name in the Epstein files, and he's dealing with all of that publicly. But it was strange to look at his emails and see how he was constantly trying to ingratiate and flatter Epstein. It's like they were all pretending like they didn't know who he was. But this was 2013. The case that happened in 2008 and his whole sweetheart deal was in the news. It was famous.
Yeah.
And even though he only got charged with the one crime of a minor, and people were like, oh, she's barely legal, there were over 30 allegations that went with that he wasn't charged with. And they were young, so everyone knew who he was back then. And they all were inviting him to different events. And they knew who traveled with him. They were calling it his harem. Richard Branson called it, oh, next time you come, bring your harem.
Bring your harem.
Yeah,
Jeez.
They all knew who this guy was.
Yeah.
When you walked into his Manhattan townhouse, I would like to amend a little bit some things I've said about Epstein and the occult. Because, we're just going to add another layer to it. Because I was saying we didn't see a lot of formal occultism mixed up with Epstein. But we did see things that could be considered occult. So, for example, when you walked into his Manhattan townhouse, there were a bunch of prosthetic eyeballs looking at you. And then there was a glass case like a museum with a first edition copy of Lolita, the novel, which is all about a guy repeatedly forcing himself on a 12-year-old and driving across country. Jeez. So the eyeballs plus the glass case that you could not ignore.
Right.
He wanted you to see who he was, and he wanted to know that he saw you looking at who he was.
Right.
And now he had power over you. Mm-hmm. One could say that's a cult. It doesn't have to involve anything supernatural. One could say that is a cult, for sure. But I really bring that up to say all of these people knew who he was.
Yeah. I mean, just like, Bill Gates years ago mentioned how he was just hanging out with them just because he thought it would help him get a Nobel Peace Prize, right?
Yeah. And Gates has a lot to answer for. So, at this point, the strangest thing about Gates is the email that Epstein wrote to himself, which was also evidence that Epstein was familiar with how to blackmail someone, how to write a letter to blackmail someone. That's proof. Mm-hmm. No one's disputing that that's real. Now, he never sent it to Bill. So maybe he was just doing a practice run. Maybe he was going to try to get the dirt later. But if nothing else, it proves that Epstein was into the idea of blackmail. Proves it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so now Musk is tweeting that money can't buy happiness, as if that wasn't obvious from the very beginning. I mean, geez, dude.
Whatever,
Yeah. Now he's trying to get sympathy, right? I mean, it's indefensible. So he has no other choice but to act like a 3-year-old who got caught.
Right, yeah.
And we might as well get it out of the way, because I'm getting annoyed that people keep dancing around it. Trump is in those files 38,000 times.
Right.
Anyone not talking about it is doing a disservice to you and the truth. there are allegations in there that have varying levels of credibility. I looked into the limo driver one that we brought up in the last episode, and I have to say that the man seemed unwell to me, the limo driver. He gave some video testimony that I watched, and he was making some wild allegations. But that said, there was a 19-year-old girl that had her head blown off, and it appeared to be covered up. So if the FBI had looked into it, then we'd know more information about that. You're not doing yourself any favors by putting this up and saying we didn't look into it because we didn't think Trump was involved. Well, that's not helping.
Right.
Who did you talk to? Did you look into the autopsy photos? Because something happened there. Like, it's so tone deaf that they think that they're defending themselves by simply defending themselves and not pursuing justice and the law.
Right.
Like, I'm not asking about you. Why do you keep pointing the finger back at yourself?
Yeah.
I'm saying I want justice. But there's another video out there by a woman named Katie Johnson, and it's very difficult to watch, but you should watch it and hear her tell her side of the story. And she said Trump forced himself on her when she was like 13, 14 years old, and she was crying, and she was worried that she was going to get pregnant. Trump threw $50 at her and told her to get an abortion. So this video is hard to watch, but I think everyone should, and then make your own assessments as to whether or not you think she's telling the truth. She began a court case, but then retracted it out of concerns for her own safety. And that's all over these files, both allegations of Epstein threatening to kill these girls and Trump threatening to kill these girls, if they talk. And this is mentioned a number of times. And we know there's a bunch of mysterious deaths here. So we were relying on the FBI and the Epstein files that would be unredacted to tell us the truth about this. But if we're looking for clarity, maybe there's hope. Because, oh lordy, there are tapes.
Yeah. We all know they're tapes. That was part of his biz, right? That was basically record everyone doing bad stuff. Rich and powerful people doing bad stuff.
Yeah.
For power.
And as of today, which is February 7th, one of Epstein's victims, who's very credible, says that there are tapes of Donald Trump doing bad things to someone underage, criminally, on camera. And they're in the files. So if the Justice Department hands over all of that information to Congress, as the law requires, and does not redact it, we will find out whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
And starting next week, those unredacted files are going to Congress. And how can you have a scandal without dragging the Clintons in front of Congress?
Right.
I'm all for it. He has stuff in that file. Bill is mentioned over 1,000 times in those files.
Yep.
So he should explain what he was doing in the hot tub and who was in the hot tub with him. And we should all hear it. I'm with the Clintons. They should be testifying publicly on this. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm not with the Clintons.
Yeah, right. Don't be saying that. Soundbite.
Regardless, they have to do this publicly for the same reason that they have to do the Charlie Kirk assassination trial publicly. Because they want to squash questions. And we're going to have a million questions if they don't tell us the answers. So you can't hide this anymore. You can't have a closed-door meeting where you decide what happened and then come out and tell us the narrative. No one's buying that crap.
Right. It's just too big. Everyone's now seen the scale of it.
And we've all seen them lie to our face. Kash Patel was in front of Congress and the entire country and the entire world saying that Epstein trafficked girls to no one but himself.
Right, yeah.
It is incredibly clear from Epstein's emails that he was trafficking girls to other people.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
And now we all know that he lied to us, and in other times, that would be a big deal. He would be fired immediately, and his name would be mud.
Yeah, I mean, name another time when it's so clear cut that the director of the FBI lied in front of Congress. I mean, it's amazing.
About something this big and this terrible. That's perjury.
Yeah.
But the relationship with the Clintons is very strange because, they're saying it was mostly financial and he was advising them on different things. But Epstein expressed far-right ideologies in the Epstein files, like in his own emails to Peter Thiel.
Mm-hmm.
He said that Brexit was just the beginning. And then he said that this was a beginning of a rise in tribalism, which was going to be a counter to globalism.
Right.
And it was going to end in some sort of techno-fascism that they both want,
Right. Yeah.
And Epstein told Thiel, this is what I said to you in your office. So they were having that conversation face to face. And I find that very interesting because Thiel has been wanting to create his own cities. First, he was beginning this idea of a floating city. Way back in like 2011, 2012, when he realized nobody would give him land to make his own cities and no one's going to back this idea. So he was starting this idea of billionaires creating their own floating cities.
Right.
Which would be free, they'd be on international
waters. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You get the picture.
Yeah.
And he's king. And all of these people's crazy megalomaniacal cartoon ideas, they're king, right?
Right.
So when Trump gets elected, Trump all of a sudden starts saying, we're going to build new freedom cities, which are basically just Peter Thiel's recycled seasteading ideas.
Right.
But now they're on dry land because Trump's actually willing to get behind him because he helped Trump get elected.
Yeah. And you know how they're selling it to him too, right? It's like every freedom city is going to have a golden Trump tower.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It's an easy sell.
It's corruption and cronyism on crack.
Right.
But this interest in far-right politics will bring us to the most surprising and pervasive revelation in the files, I thought. It looks like Epstein had a hand in launching QAnon or QAnon-adjacent conspiracies and platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting to be able to continue the Q thread that we began in like October of last year, unbroken, and have new evidence appear in this 10-year-old mystery as we're going in the show. Like, again, 14 wins luck is basically high strangeness. How many times has this happened now? Are you guys keeping track? It's getting really weird, right?
Yeah.
Anywho, we've been discussing QAnon history and how it relates to the whole situation we're in right now. And as we mentioned, it started on 4chan. But more specifically, it started on the /poll board. And if you're not familiar with anonymous message boards like 4chan or Reddit, they're basically organized by category of interest. And prior to October of 2011, 4chan was mainly gaming and online and anime culture, but there was also a variety of far-right, conspiracy, far-left, just wild political ideas getting mixed up in all the boards. So in October of 2011, according to Epstein's emails, he goes and meets with Christopher Poole, who is the founder and CEO of 4chan. And he writes that he likes Poole, and he gave him a ride home. And that same day, Poole reorganizes 4chan to create the /poll board, which would become the birthplace of QAnon.
Right.
And here I have to give credit to some of our listeners who were insistent that QAnon began with Cicada 3301 and that involves some form of human programming. And I thought, there's just not enough evidence there. I think there is now. I think I could say that was one part of experimenting that led to QAnon, and they were doing a bunch of experimentation on 4chan, on /poll, right after Poole started to organize it. a lot of those tactics, and I'm sure the same users, were coming straight out of the Ukraine, where all of this was happening in a very similar, if not identical, fashion. What happened in the Ukraine after Russia lost the pro-Russia friendly government is that they began a whole online troll farm that was being run by Russian intelligence, the FSB, and they were doing the types of things that you see online today that people sometimes do for free. They were just making stuff up. They were trying to trim away at people they hated. They were just attacking people with lies if they were counter to their pro-Russian ideas. And they were just trying to make it impossible to tell the truth.
Right.
And within that, they thought they could make hay.
Right.
And this is Russian intelligence doctrine. This is also feeds into Russian military doctrine. And they've been doing it in the U.S. for the last 15 years. And it's been so successful that the people they've gotten on their side in the U.S. will fight you tooth and nail. If you're like, hey, dude, that's Russian propaganda. It came from RT. Yeah. Like, how dare you? And then they'll tell you how Russia's not your enemy and whatever. Just listen to Putin. If you think Russia's not your enemy, listen to what he has to say about the United States of America.
Yeah.
It's not friendly.
No.
But they have been so successful in this effort. And I think we even have some Russian listeners. So if you would, can you please let those in our audience and our Western audience know that you ran laps for the last 14 years around American intelligence in this way?
Right.
Take a victory lap, because no one seems to believe it. And we know Russia was even putting money behind these conspiracy efforts, and they were using ad buys to support them. They were promoting different posts that they thought would further their agenda.
Yeah, I'll never forget that page. They had a Facebook page that actually was organizing gatherings in Texas where Americans actually moved their butts to that place, directed by someone 5,000 miles away. It's unbelievable.
It's incredible. And they learned how to do that on 4chan. They used the /poll board as their sandbox to do it. So Epstein set all that up. And to further substantiate that, what ended up getting involved in the QAnon conspiracy, which is pizza-coded language that was really referencing minors, was really being used in the Epstein files. He was really using that in his own emails. He was referring to kids and minors as pizza. And grape soda.
Ugh.
This is where it gets mind-blowing to me, and this is the point I really want to drive home today and that I feel is somewhat additive here. Let's go back to Donald Barr for a second. Remember our Epstein's Web episode when I talked about the book that Donald Barr wrote?
Right.
And
the father of Bill Barr.
Correct.
The former attorney general. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. Donald Barr is the father of William Barr, who was Trump's former attorney general, who closed the case on Epstein and declared it a suicide.
Right.
So the odds of Donald Barr giving Epstein his first job at an elite private school, which he was totally unqualified for, and then his son closing the case on his suspicious death is incredibly unlikely. The odds of Donald Barr writing a book that brags about oligarchic elites running a spacefaring society that uses minors and adults as sexual playthings because they're bored, and then that actually happening, are incredibly low.
Yeah.
Hang on. Someone's at the door. The dog's freaking out. So we said it at the time. That is a tactic. By fictionalizing his crimes, it made people less likely to believe them. So what are the odds that Epstein would do the same thing? Of course he did. Like, he went in there and he tried to create a conspiracy theory that mirrored his own crimes, but directed it toward his political enemies. Remember, we said he's a far-right ideologue. So this killed two birds with one stone for him.
Yeah.
On the one hand, he's able to deflect attention off himself. On the other, he's able to point it towards his political enemies. And it goes further. This is evil as hell, but it's also genius. Because that's on the front. Like, if you believe this QAnon narrative, then you believe that it's Epstein's political enemies that are doing it, and you're now his drones.
Right.
If you don't believe the QAnon narrative, you think all of it is a lie. So now you're helping him deflect away from his network.
Yeah.
And this happened. Like, this happened on the left with the news. I'm glad to see people like Ari Melber on MSNBC having a big, giant whiteboard that looks like a cork board in a storage shed that a conspiracy theorist would have. Finally, dude. Like, he's actually getting into this now.
Yeah.
But they were all saying that this was a conspiracy theory not more than 3 years ago.
Yeah. What's also interesting is that QAnon, remember how people thought they were doing research into the allegations that QAnon was making? And the research wasn't real research. It was like people were suddenly believing in numerology, in popular politics, or just picking words from their favorite politicians, like what they're saying, and trying to piece them together into new sentences. I mean, there was no real research going on, but they were so deep into a conspiracy.
The research became confirmation of the conspiracy theory.
Right.
The idea was to take any picture or anything that happened politically or socially and then back that into the Q theory. And the way you did that, and if you could do that and give people the most dopamine, they would reward you with more clicks, more likes, more video. So in that cicada stuff, like they even had a name for human programming that they do this stuff with. It's called fichting. And you can see this like in digital marketing. You know, we can tell like when we run an ad and how many people click through it and then how many people convert on it and whether it's this headline or that headline. Like you can really refine it to the point where you know if I send this message, I will make this much money.
Right.
They were figuring out that if I send this message, I can get this response from the user.
Right.
And there's ways to measure all of that online. So then you just rinse, lather, repeat. You optimize the same way you would any other digital test.
Yeah.
So they knew how to game the movement. And that all began the same day Poole, who goes by Moot, met with Jeffrey Epstein. And it's the same tactic that Donald Barr used. So if you don't consider that proof, I would ask that you go to any AI engine, Gemini, GPT, Claude, and I'd like you to give it the high-level details. First of all, establish that all of these things happen. Donald Barr wrote the book. William Barr, these are all accepted historical facts.
Yeah.
Then I want you to ask that AI, what are the odds that all of this stuff happens by coincidence? I know what it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you basically zero.
Right.
There's no chance. But I want you to do that so that you understand this is proof. You are seeing proof. It's not a guess. They did this. Like, remember the guy that went into Comet Pizza and demanded to see the basement?
Yeah, with a gun.
But there was no basement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so anyone looking at that went, oh, the guy is delusional and the QAnon conspiracy is just a wackadoo fiction.
Mm-hmm. And what that does, it just trivializes the whole notion of the crime, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you got more than half the population. It just thinks, like you said, it's just a wackadoodle thing. It's not really happening. It couldn't happen.
And the people within the QAnon movement were so confused. Like, they were all coming up with their own conspiracies, and they were encouraged to do that, right? As long as it backed into a certain narrative that fed into Trump being some messiah that was taking on the deep state.
Right.
I mean, we now have Trump's FBI director lying to our faces about the Epstein files, and Trump in them 38,000 times. Who's the deep state?
Right, right. And then we can't have this discussion without talking about the obvious connections that Epstein had with not only Israeli intelligence, but Russian intelligence. And not only Russian intelligence, but actually financials, Russian financials. There's information in his emails that suggests that he was actually managing some of Putin's assets, which is amazing. And he was actually trying to get a personal meeting set up with Putin, him and Putin.
And that's a great example of why it doesn't have to be one or the other. The meeting that he was trying to get set up was for the Minister of Defense of Israel.
Right.
So people saying he has to have been involved only with Israeli intelligence, or he has to have only been involved with Russian intelligence or U.S. intelligence. It does not have to be any one of those things.
No. And those intelligence agencies all across the world, they have backroom handshake deals happening all the time.
All the time. And they all knew about him. To pretend like Mossad was not going to be aware of an island where their prime ministers were going.
Right.
Like they'd be really bad at their job.
Right.
CIA too.
Yeah.
Bill Burns, former head of CIA, went out to Epstein Island. Like, if they didn't know about that, they'd be really, really bad at their job.
Right.
I don't think so. They all knew who Epstein was, what he was doing, and I've heard from one former CIA person say that they thought he was a fixer, which is someone that just you go to and they make stuff happen.
Right.
And they get stuff in return.
Right. So now we have European countries who see this connection with Russia, who are suddenly very interested in their own Epstein investigations. And so we got more Epstein investigations going on now than ever before across the world.
Across the Atlantic, they're actually pursuing justice.
Yeah.
Over here, we're still dealing with our ontological shock.
Right.
Or are we? I mean, at this point, honestly, I think anyone who is willing to accept the truth has done so. And then those who are not have decided they want to be a part of the Diddler Army. I don't know.
Yeah. It's pretty weird.
Speaking of weird, Epstein was also into high strangeness experiments. He was into the psi experiments. So he was conducting them. He was discussing the protocols with Deepak Chopra.
Now, what's that? I don't know much about that.
Well, Deepak Chopra is a guru that's into spiritual ethics.
Right.
He doesn't seem to know much about that.
Yeah, he's got a ton of books published. I know that.
Oh, yeah. Turns out they're all BS. He knew who Epstein was. He's saying stuff right now that seems to be dismissive of it all, but it's really hypocritical and disappointing to see him in there literally discussing young women with him, his enjoyment of young women.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But Epstein's getting his read on some of the experiments that he has going, and he refers to the subjects in the experiments as lab rats, but I think that we'd all want to know how they were being treated, if there were anything criminal going on. But either way, he was into psi experiments. And this verifies what we've been saying for some time, that these billionaires are obsessed with the phenomenon. And I think that that will be something good for us to get into in later episodes. We're also going to be getting into our 50th episode coming up. And I thought we'd hold on to, right? I thought we'd hold on to our What is a PSYOP episode for our 50th, because we've been saying, and that's going to be a really good one where we're going to talk about the military version of it and then the public's version of a PSYOP. And I'm sure we'll be talking about all of this stuff because this is a PSYOP. This is finally the best example of a PSYOP that I can use, which is QAnon. Now I can say QAnon was a PSYOP. And not only that, we can use it as a historical and framework analysis template going forward. That is a real PSYOP. That's what we've been trying to point out. Like there's a big difference between network talking points and that.
You would hope in the future that awareness would help correct and protect the country from it ever happening again. But We don't learn
It does.
that well here.
It does. And I think that's good for us to remember, because I know we said that in our Epstein's Web episode. We said, look, it's day one of this. Yeah. And people were already giving up.
Yeah, true.
And look where we are in just a short amount of time. It's less than a year. We've actually made a lot of progress as a global society.
Mm-hmm.
I've been consuming a lot of research from Brazil. They're so used to dealing with corruption down there that they're digging into the Epstein files for us. Yeah. And then I can have it translated from Portuguese into English thanks to the internet. But I would recommend that everyone do that, because there are people in these other countries that don't have the same fears, the same obsession with clicks that the people in the United States do. They're just going out and telling the truth. So definitely check out what some of the international journalists are saying about what's happening in our own country.
Yeah, yeah. Feel the need to also express to our listeners that we are a human podcast. I just recently heard about that company. It's called Inception Point AI, where they're pumping out like 3,000 podcast episodes a week that are just all AI generated. I mean, talk about noise.
We are definitely human, warts, flaws, and all. Wrinkles, even, and zits. For which I like to use Blissani Naturals. Oh, there we go.
What a segue. Yeah.
You can check out our sponsor that deals in vegan skincare, Blissani, BLISSANI.com. And you can get 25% off vegan anti-aging and acne with code Fortean25. I will add a link in the description. I do love the products. I do enjoy the fact that they don't harm my internal organs.
That's right.
Because they're vegan and all natural, and they are safe and effective, and they do work really fast. And I hope people will actually check them out. 14 Wins will get a little portion of every purchase.
Right on. Well, it's a good spot to wrap it up. Like you said, Ram, 50th episodes next, and it's going to be a good one. We're going to talk about PSYOPs. I think it's an important topic because PSYOPs are everywhere, and they lead to so many different topics, and they affect our lives, and we need to talk about them.
Yeah, it's nice of the world to conform to our episode schedule. And
yeah, right.
Put forth millions of PSYOPs in order for us to explore. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for all of your kind comments, your upvotes, your likes. This has been a good couple of weeks for us, and we really appreciate all of your support. And I especially love it when you guys are like, why don't more people know about you guys?
Yeah, right.
That's my favorite comment. I'm like, that's the nicest thing anyone could say. But yeah, hey, you can help us out by hitting the share button or the like button or the subscribe button. All of those things help with the algorithm. But we kind of don't care. I gotta be honest. We don't. We try to care, but we only, as long as we're getting the truth out and we're talking to intelligent people who like how we frame it, we're happy. So thank you.
Definitely. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You can always visit our website, too, at 14wins.com. Thanks, Ram.
Thanks, Bones. See you next time.
Bye.